Hello there, students. Today we're going to continue our discussion of the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which limited the power of the monarch and extended rights to the citizens. This is something that was done. This would happen for the first time in history, where a ruler was held accountable and people, average people, got to speak. Okay, so important rights established by the document, including the accused person is guaranteed a trial with the jury. Now, don't get confused. It's not exactly a jury trial that we're talking about today, but it was 12 people like that, the accused, and it was not the king. So all citizens were guaranteed justice. Now, so we're going to look at the seven principles of the Magna Carta that came from the Magna Carta: limited government, the rule of law, the balance of power, power of the purse, private property, due process, and judgment by your peers. Now, the idea of limited government is, just think about a limit as to what you can do. If it's specified somewhere that you can only do this one thing, well, then you can only do that one thing. Now, for us, we have the three branches of government. That the checks and balances, they watch each other. There's no one, in theory anyway, no one branch is more powerful than the other. Uh, Certainly, over the last 70 years or so, the executive branch has certainly become very powerful. But the Supreme Court and Congress, they're no slouches either. Uh, you know, the idea from the Magna Carta, you see it throughout our American government. Themes evident throughout the Constitution. We're always talking about limitations. Congress shall make no law, or the rights of the people shall not be abridged. And you'll see it everywhere. Article 1, Section 9, Article 1, Section 10. So I think what you should take away from this is that there is a limit as to what government can do. The president cannot declare war. Congress can declare war. That's their power. It's spelled out like that. So another important concept is this idea of the rule of law. So what is the rule of law? Uh, in real simple terms, no one is above the law. Not a politician, not a priest, not a criminal, not a police officer. We are all accountable for our actions, especially in this day and age when there's cameras everywhere. Think of it as equal justice under the law. You got to play by the rules. Okay, as simple as that. Certainly, there's a way of getting around that. If you have a great deal of money, you can afford expensive counsel. You may know people, as they would say, and you can skirt the law a little bit. But in theory, the law is the same for everyone. So old King John, he was not above the law anymore. The law applied to him just like everybody else. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is this idea of balance of power. And the key word here is oversight. Someone or a legislative body is holding elected officials accountable. So you vote for somebody, and they're not doing a good job, and you're getting mad. You can get them out of office. It's a tough process. You have to get signatures, but you can do it. If you're looking at this sign right here, it says balance of power. If you go halfway down, it says congressional oversight, has the power to review actions of government agencies, looks into fraud and other scandals. So if an elected official gets in trouble, probably the most famous remedy is called impeachment. You impeach that elected official. It's going to take a great deal of coordination, but you can impeach that official because you feel that they're not doing a good job. Another remedy is a recall election. This has happened quite a few times in the past 20 years. California, most notably, there was a recall election a few years ago in Wisconsin. But the thing you want to take away from here is that these barons, they were watching King John. So if he did not do what he was supposed to do, they were ready and they were going to exercise their authority under the Magna Carta. Probably the one of the biggest abuses that King John uh, was guilty of was this idea of raising taxes without the consent of anybody, and that's usually what a king did in those times. They could basically do whatever they pleased. So the power of the purse, the idea is that this legislative body, uh, Parliament nowadays for England, they became known as the power. They became known as the power of the purse, the controllers of the power of the purse. So John agreed not to raise taxes without the consent of the Great Council, those 25 barons. And this Great Council evolved into Parliament. Parliament and Congress, they control the money. They can withhold the money. They can withhold the funding. So, King John was not able to do that. He could not get his greedy paws on the money any longer without the permission of the barons. Another thing which is very important in our society today is the idea of private property. King John had no respect for others' property. He would, you know, the idea that he would take land, tools, livestock without a person's permission. That with the Magna Carta, they said that this agreement not only preserves the right of subjects to own property, but also stops the king from becoming richer or more powerful by taking property from his subjects. So, we have the concept of a respect for private property. Now, the whole idea of uh, the do you really own your property? We talked a little bit about that this year. Certainly you pay taxes, but the government can take your property if it wants to. The Fifth Amendment, if you scroll down, it says that nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That last piece there, just compensation, there's a little clause in the Constitution called eminent domain. And the government, the state, whatever, can take your property for public use, but they have to compensate you. So, yeah, they may be able to take your property, but you're going to get money for it. You're going to get something out of it. Unlike under John, where he would take your property for his personal gain and you saw no money at all. Uh, the Probably the one thing that is most important and that emerged from in my opinion anyway, is this idea of due process. When you see the word process, you have to follow steps, procedure. So, in other words, if you are unfortunately arrested, they take you to the police station. You are not automatically sent to prison if it's a heinous crime. You have a hearing. You can post bail. You have the right to a lawyer. So the idea of due process, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without that procedure. You have to go through steps. You have to go through steps. So, the the idea that uh, before due process, John could throw you in jail and you would never be heard from again. A famous component of this due process clause is the habeas corpus. Though not introduced in the Magna Carta, it was certainly enforced or reinforced by the Magna Carta. The writ of habeas corpus is a writ or a court order to produce the body or hand over a prisoner so that it might review the legality of the prisoner's detention. In other words, you will have your day in court. You will have your day in court. This has been in the news often over the last 10 years. The detainees down at Guantanamo Bay, they've been held in custody for a long time. Most of them have never been in a court of law to understand what they've done. We know, in a sense, what they've done. They were captured on the battlefield, but yet they come under the guidance of our legal system. The last concept in the of the seven principles is the idea of judgment by your peers. Your peers. Who are your peers? Well, people like you. Does that always mean exactly like you? Of course not. But the king cannot be the jury or choose the jury. You are entitled to a trial by jury, and the jury must consist of your social equals. So, Chapter 39 of the Magna Carta, no free man shall be seized or imprisoned except by the lawful judgment of his peers. Now, some people have said this is a jury trial. This was a little bit early for the jury trial. But what is important here is that the idea, the seed of our jury system was planted in this document. Okay, so you often see, if you're someday you may be on jury duty, they'll ask you questions, and they're trying to get a fair and impartial jury. They don't want to have somebody that's going to not listen to the facts of the case, and they're going to simply rule against them. So, in addition to those seven principles, probably the most famous component is this idea of parliament. Parliament was formed to check the royal powers. And in modern England, you have Parliament consisting of the two houses: the House of Lords, the House of Commons. Now, the House of Commons is common people. So they are the ones. They have the real authority in England today. Not the Queen is a figurehead. She does not have that kind of authority any longer. So Parliament started out originally as a group of advisors to the monarch, and then slowly it took on more and more power. By the 1300s, it became a legislature, and today the Parliament has all the powers in English government. Now, again, for our system, we have the three branches. We, in theory, none of the three are more powerful than the other. Henry III, who was John's son, came to the throne when he was 9 years old. He by the late 1300s, the group, he fostered the idea of Parliament. Today, England has a parliamentary democracy. The King or Queen's power is limited by Constitution. So, if you look at the Magna Carta, what has it done? It's given us the seven principles. It's given us the idea of Parliament. But if you're looking at the screen right now, all these documents they've come after the Magna Carta: the Petition of Right of 1628, the Habeas Corpus Act of 1679, the English Bill of Rights in 1689, the U.S. Declaration of Independence in 1768, constitutions around the world, Declaration of Human Rights. So these are all these documents owe their lives, so to speak, to Magna Carta. So in that grassy field over 800 years ago, King John was basically brought to his knees, and from that point on, people had a say in government. It was no longer one person controlling everything. They had a say. Thanks.